I grew up in a poor, dysfunctional community in North Sumatra, Indonesia. My family was also dysfunctional. I did not fit in among my peers, so just like any other lost kid who gets saved by movies, I frequented this rundown cinema, either buying tickets and watch movies inside the cinema or peeking through the ventilation window, because at the time there was no air conditioner. They're using fan, and there was ventilation window where you can peek into it and you can still see three-fourths of the portion of the screen inside the cinema. And most films that were screened in the cinema were horror movies, because horror is the genre for the masses. And I learned a lot about life values, even though they're horror films, from those movies. I saw the masterpieces from William Friedkin's The Exorcist, or Peter Medak The Changeling, or to the obscure B movies, masterpieces like Ruggero Deodata's Atlantis Inferno, which I love very much, even though it traumatized me as a kid. There's always honesty in horror movies, because the filmmaker's main objective is to give that audience that entertainment, that ride. Of course, there are things that a filmmaker trying to say in their films. But I think for horror movies, it won't be accomplished without first giving the audience that scares, that goosebumps, those thrills, and that movie experience. So obviously, after growing up with films, saved by films, I wanted to be a filmmaker, but my family could not afford to put me in film school, because we were poor. So I enrolled in this best college in Indonesia, simply because the tuition fee is cheap, was cheap, and there was this student filmmakers club where you can learn how to make films, where you can learn how to operate a video camera at the time. But I wasn't accepted in that club, so I just finished my school very quickly, and then after I graduated, I sent my application letters to all production houses in Indonesia, in Jakarta, but because I did not have a background in filmmaking, none of them gave me a callback. So I thought if I become a journalist, probably I could interview people from the industry and establish a networking or something and sell my script, and that's what I did. I became a journalist, and then later I become a film critic and burned so many bridges. But I was lucky because there were some filmmakers who end up open that door to me, to work in the industry. I was interviewing this filmmaker, Nia Dinata, for her movie, and we end up discussing about script. And she asked me, how come I dare to be such a smart ass, talking about script writing and stuff. I told her that I also wrote scripts, and she asked me to send her my script, and I did. That evening, I sent her the first 20 pages of my movie called Johnny's Promise, and she read it. A few hours later, she called me and asking me to meet the next day, and she gave me the writing job for next film. And 2 years after that, she produced my first feature. I have a friend, her name is Sekar Ayu Asmara, and she's a novelist and also a filmmaker. One day she told me that a producer wanted to adapt her book titled The Forbidden Door for a movie, and she agreed only if the producer hired me to write the screenplay. Um, I read the book. I told her I loved the book, but I also told her that I was gonna need to make some adjustment in the story for the screenplay. She said I could do whatever I want with it. So I kind of mesh together the story in the book with the story that I already had for a long time, involving this secret organization called Herosase. The secret organization is some sort of a thing that exists in a cinematic universe for all my films. So after I finished writing the script, I showed it to the producer, and he read it, and he thought the script was too violent for Indonesian audience, and it would be difficult for Indonesian market. So he dropped the project. But then I met Sheila Timothy, the producer of the film, who then read the script, and she happened to love it, and she took the film rights and she produced it. The Forbidden Door is set in Jakarta, of course. It's in Jakarta. Of course, there are elements that people can pinpoint that this is Jakarta, this is Indonesia, but it exists between the reality Jakarta and Jakarta that is somewhere in our imagination. I always love it when I make films and people cannot pinpoint in which year this movie was made. It will make movies not easily dated. It will make it timeless. So I think it's my vice to do films where people cannot actually see what the actual year it was set. Some of my films actually is set in a very certain movies, like A Copy of My Mind, my drama movie in 2015. But most of my films actually set in the sort of reality and dreamlike state. There is this recurring theme of neglected children or the lack of protective figure in the Forbidden Door, like in all my films. Like in Impregnates, the lack of protective figure is quite literal. It's the lack of skin in human beings. But I believe that whatever it is that filmmakers try to say in their movies has to take a backseat. What has to be the first experience in watching a movie is an accessible story that audience can easily delve into and characters they can identify with, and that right. I think it's important for screenwriters to get excited about what they are writing. So every time I write something, I always try to find something that amuses me. So when I write a script, when I write a scene, if a scene does not amuse me, or if I'm supposed to write a scary scene and that scene does not scare me, I would select all and delete. So I think I should be the first audience, and you should be your the first the people who can appreciate your work and the first critic of your work as well. Parents often worry that violent movies can trigger violence in their kids. But actually, a new study suggests that PG-rated movies will not turn your kids into criminal. Researchers actually found that as PG-13 movies became more violent between 1985 and 2015, overall rates of murder and violence actually fell in the United States. So there is a connection there, or there is not a connection there, but certainly violent movies do not yield a more violent society. I'm not a fan of violence for violence sake in movies. I'm not even a fan of gore when it's too much, it's too gratuitous and numbing. I like violence like in Cronenberg movies. I believe violence is a tool of storytelling, just like any other elements in films. There is cinematography, art direction, acting, the way you move your camera, the way you do the blocking for your actors and everything. All of them, I think, are tools for you to tell stories, and violence is also a tool for you to tell a story. So I don't believe in putting things, including violence, just to show people of what you can do, because it's not a toy. Because if you make films and you want people to see your film, you demand them to spend efforts, whether money, energy, or time to watch your film. I think there has to be this understanding, this honesty that you are there to create this communication, this relationship between you, a filmmaker, and the audience. So it's not about you showing off what you can do or what you are allowed to do, but you are trying to establish a connection. You're trying to tell a story. You're trying to tell them whatever you're trying to tell by giving them that experience of watching your film. So yeah, I don't believe that you have to you can make violence because you can make it violence. I think the biggest challenge for a director is to be able to make your crew and cast to come up with their best. That's why they were hired. They were hired because of their skill and their talent. Some directors use pressure to make people give their best, but I think I try to make my cast and crew feel comfortable. My cast to easily slip into the characters. I became an actor myself to be able to how it does feel to be directed by a director to help my actors to work. And I understand that you cannot give the same method to every actor. So usually when I direct an actor, is different from one actor to another. During the audition process, I always there to see an actor. So if this actor is hired, I would then know what kind of directing style that I have to use with them. The difference between Indonesian horror movies and American ones, obviously the budget. Yeah. For instance, The Forbidden Door was made under 400,000 US dollars, shot in 30 days. It's quite long. But my Satan Slaves movie 2017 was made under 200,000 US dollars, shot in 70 days. And most effects were done practically. So even during writing the screenplay, I had that in mind, that the budget is going to be limited. So I would not put anything that I won't be able to afford. So that's yeah. And in terms of themes, Indonesian horror movies usually contain elements of Islamic beliefs, even though it's probably different than, say, in the 80s. Back then, Muslim teachers always came in the end to save the day, but it's not like that anymore. As you can see in my movies, I think because the audience and filmmakers are getting smarter, and if we put that, I think we're going to get laughed at. Even though there are still some Indonesian films they still have the Muslim teachers come to save everybody at the end of the movie, but it's very rare these days. Well, Asian cinema actually has always been marvelous, always been great and exciting. I think people just recently discovered them because the accessibility of streaming platforms. More people all over the world suddenly they switch on the streaming platforms. They flick through and they discover some titles they get very interested in. It happens to be Asian films, and they happen to love it. They said, "Wow, it's great," and they want to know more about movies from those particular filmmakers or those particular countries. And it's good because it opens up horizon and understandings of other culture, as many filmmakers made films that dealt with various social issues in order to reflect and interpret the society that they live in. And I think by having that understanding of other cultures, we will be able to understand our cultures more, or understand the problems that we live more. And it's good because hopefully it will create a better world somehow. I've never been bothered by criticism in for my films. Of course, as a filmmaker, you put your all your effort, your energy, your time, sometimes your money into making a films. If someone trash your film of course you feel hurt, but I only allow myself to get hurt, to be upset for only a short period of time, probably 1 hour, 2 hours, or the longest probably one day. Uh, I got upset reading a review or watching a review on YouTube, but when I wake up the next day, I have to be able to brush it off, because I don't think those reviews are personal. I don't think those reviewers uh, continue thinking about your films, how bad your film is 24/7. Um, and it's foolish for you to hold a grudge as a filmmaker just because of a bad review. I think every review is good to understand more, either about your film or about your audience or about yourself. So there's always something that you can get from a review, whether a review is spot on or simply negative for being negative sake. There's always something that you can get from a review. Yeah, as a critic, I have always looked at films before I become a critic. When I was a critic, and now I'm a filmmaker, I always look at films as a fan of films. So I never want to find something to criticize. Every time I start a film, uh, either I go to the cinema and a film starts, or I flick through my streaming platforms and find a film to see. I always start the film with an open mind. I'm open for everything, for style of filmmaking, for any kind of themes. So yeah, I always want to love a film, because I think movies is movies is is the greatest blessing for humankind.